Hello, athletes and fans of bodybuilding. Terrick Guindy with the Mr. Olympia. Today we have three of the biggest icons of bodybuilding, starting with the most popular bodybuilder in the United States of America. He is the North Americans champion. He also is the Arnold Classic champion. He also won the New York Pro, and he top five in the Mr. Olympia. His name is Nick the Mutant Walker. How are you, Nick?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing good. Nick, you look great with that blue shirt. We're getting comments here. The women are going crazy. You're making a lot of money. You own big properties in Florida. Congratulations. You're on top of the world.
Thank you. Thank you.
And also with us in California, another man, another wealthy man. He is the Arnold Classic champion. He is the Ironman champion. He's considered to be among Lee Haney, one of the greatest national champions. He's a Hall of Famer, Shawn Sugar Ray. How are you, Shawn? Hold on, I put you on mute here. Shawn,
I'm good, baby. I'm good. What's happening?
You
Nick?
muted him.
I'm here.
And also with us, the voice of bodybuilding, the athletes representative, 2000 Mr. USA's Masters Olympia, one of the most vocal men in our industry, Robert Chicherillo. Is that correct, Shawn?
That's how you say it, but can he hear you?
Bob, can you hear us?
I don't think so.
Apparently, Fuad Abiyad is sabotaging Bob's internet right now. So we'll be back in a second. So
That's funny.
Fuad, if you're watching this, we welcome you in this live.
He's working overtime.
But anyways, we'll go. Bob, can you hear us?
I hear Bob pressing the buttons, but he's looking at what's he looking at?
I got nothing.
We can hear you. We can hear you.
Go find your daughter and have her do it. She's 14. I know she knows how to do it.
Well, I want to move on to Nick Walker. Shawn, you know the national shows. I know the national shows. So does Bob. We've seen the nationals, the North Americans, the USAs. Nick Walker turned pro at the North Americans, and it was 2019.
Melania.
How you doing, Bob? Can you hear us?
He's calling his daughter
Melania.
Melania. I told you he'd be calling for his daughter.
So
he's got the screensaver on. Go ahead.
He turned pro at the 2019 North Americans.
Right.
We've had great champions, Shawn Ray, in the North Americans. Shows promoted by Derry Udit. The A-Team does the backstage. Some of these great champions, we include Dexter Jackson, Frank Zane, Shawn Rhoden. Do you consider Nick Walker also?
Wait. Did you say Frank Zane?
Frank Zane, yes. He won the North Americans.
Are you talking about Frank Zane, three-time Mr. Olympia Zane?
Yeah, Frank Zane, yes.
I don't even know that they had the North Americans back then, bro. You sure? I'm a historian. Don't make me pull out the books.
How about Dinner at Morton's?
I will tell you that he did join Paul Dillette, Ray McNeil, a couple oldies but goodies, Linda Murray.
So I could be wrong, but if I'm right, Dinner at Morton's with a bottle of Cayma's on you, okay?
Perfect. He's in good company. We've had a lot of good champions come out of there.
So we got Shawn Rhoden 2009. We got Dexter
Shawn
Jackson. Is
Yes.
Nick Walker one of the greatest North American champions?
Well, I mean, it's all cyclical, isn't it? Because sometimes you're only as good as the people you beat. You're on stage with. But if you put Nick on stage with those bodybuilders, he's fitting nicely on that group. So, I mean, when he won the North Americas, he's not what he is today. I'm more blown away what he has become, and he's still got a long ways to go. But he's one of the premier bodybuilders. I mean, if you put him up there, you take Paul Dillette, Ray McNeil, Dexter Jackson, Shawn Rhoden, Nick's not out of place for sure. At a younger age than all of those guys. So that's not to blow smoke, Nick, but you did it at a much younger age than all of those guys that came before you. And where you're sitting today, you're a lot further along than where they were in their career.
Meaning he can surpass them.
Well, he's got time on his side. And sometimes, you can get complacent when you realize you have a lot of time. Nick doesn't look like he's missing any meals or workouts. So he's right where he's in the sweet spot, especially for where we're at on that Olympia stage. We're kind of watching a changing of the guard, Terrick, in real time. I mean, we're not saying the names of Victor Martinez. We're not talking about a Shawn Roden. We're no longer talking about a Kai Green. Soon we won't be talking about a William Bonek and a few others, Rolly Winkler. These guys are making way for these new cats coming in. It bodes well. Nick is starting to peak at the right time, and he's in the right genre for where he's supposed to be. He's definitely got Mr. Olympia written on him. The question will be, is it happening now or will it happen in a year or two from now? As long as he doesn't get hurt, I think that title is well within his grasp.
Well, one of the interesting topics is that we currently have a mass monster as the Mr. Olympia, right? Big Ramy is a mass monster. We've had a tradition of mass monsters.
Yeah.
You can say Dorian Yates was a mass monster. You
Sure.
can say Ronnie Coleman was a mass monster. And now we have Big Ramy as a mass monster. And
Sure.
one of the things that mass monsters fear is another great mass monster. Now, my question to you and Nick is, on that final call out at the Mr. Olympia, we had Hunter Labrada, we had Hadi Choopan, Brandon Curry, and Big Ramy. And Big Ramy was the absolute mass monster among those guys. You did not have Nick Walker or Ian Valier on that call. My question to you, Nick, is do you think that if you and Ian Valier are on that first call out at the Mr. Olympia, do you guys take a little bit of the impact that Big Ramy has as the absolute mass monster?
Yeah, I think so, especially since I think obviously I have a mass monster effect, but I also bring a lot better conditioning than.
Truth.
Shawn.
Well, I think you made a mistake. I mean, I don't think Ian's going to be in that first call out. He's just not there yet. He qualified for the Olympia, but he wasn't beating guys that Nick Walker has beaten in the past. Certainly wasn't of the caliber of the top 5 guys. I mean, Nick was right there. He could have flipped a coin. He could have went up a placement or two. But that being said, he brings the muscle, and that's what it's going to take to beat somebody like a Big Ramy. Not to mention, he also has some shape. His shape is better than, I think, a Branch Warren, for example. And Branch Warren was the first Olympia runner-up. He was pushing Jay Cutler all around the stage. So it'll be nice to see Nick, as he continues to mature, get closer and closer to the champion. So we see those comparisons. He's definitely bigger than Hadi Choopan. He's definitely bigger when it comes to muscle size, definitely bigger than a Brandon Curry. But, again, he just got his feet wet. So this is a story that's unfolding in front of our eyes. And with the Olympia being as far back as December, remember, this guy you were dieting in September last year, right, Nick? Was it last year or the year before?
I basically haven't had a break. So like I started dieting, and I think March of 2020 for North Americans, and then 6 weeks later I did Chicago, and then I had like a little 2-month break, and then I started prepping in January for the New York Pro. And then we decided to do the Arnold and then right into the Olympia.
Yeah. And again, rest does a body good. So being fully rested, I wouldn't be surprised if we see the best that Nick has to offer. And if we do see it, those other guys that he was nipping at the heels last year are going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to interrupt you, Shawn Ray, we have here John Hansen. Frank Zane won the Mr. North America in 1966. So you let me know when you want to schedule that dinner.
Tell John Hansen he's fired. All right.
Okay. So let's see if we can get Bob. Bob, can you hear us?
Yo, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Can you hear?
How about that? I just upgraded this thing from a flip phone and having a rough time.
We had a comment here from Fuad Abiad. He said, "I'm sabotaging the internet of Bob Chicherillo." So
listen, you can give a message to Fuad from me that says, unless there's a black background at the Olympia, Nick Walker could be in the second or third call out, man. You better hope and pray, bro, for black behind you.
Always bet on black.
There you go.
Bob, I had a question for Shawn and for Nick. On that final call out of the Mr. Olympia, Big Steve calls Hunter Labrada. He calls Hadi Choopan. He calls Brandon Curry and Big Ramy. And what we have there is an absolute mass monster by himself among other bodybuilders with great conditioning, with great lines, right? but he was the absolute mass monster. My question to you is, if Nick Walker joins this call out in 2022, do you believe he takes the impact of Big Ramy being the absolute mass monster?
Well, listen, Nick certainly proved himself last year. If there was any doubters or haters, they were certainly quieted. But you forgot one name in that mix, though, my friend, and that's William Bonac. So don't count out the Conqueror either, right?
But is the Conqueror a mass monster, Bob? I'm not sure.
No, he's not. But listen, mass monster is a I don't know. It's almost like a throwback term. I don't know if that helps anybody here or hurts them. All I know is it depends on what you look like in comparison with the other guys. But Nick has certainly proved himself and will absolutely be in that final call out.
Well, I'll tell you this. My definition of a mass monster is somebody, obviously, who's humongous, bigger than most bodybuilders. But not only that, that has the capability of winning shows. You know, Greg Kovacs was huge, but he couldn't win shows. Marcus Rule was huge, and he could win shows. So I think Nick Walker, Ian Valier, and Big Ramy are mass monsters. Obviously, Big Ramy's legacy so far is more impactful. Nick, you think you're going to be on that final call out? Do you believe that this is the year? Because there's a buzz about you winning the Mr. Olympia. Do you believe you're going to be on that final call out and battle it out for the title?
Yeah, without a doubt.
What makes you think that?
Well, you know, like I said, I won New York last year. I won top 5 last year. Arguably could have been a little bit higher. And that was all without even having a full off season. So now that I've had over a year off season, I've made improvements where they needed to be made, and I know the conditioning that I am able to bring would probably be better this year as well, being more rested. I have no doubt I'll be in the final call out.
Now, a quick question to you, Nick. Which one was your best look? Mr. Olympia, Arnold Classic, or New York Pro?
I'd pick the Arnold.
I
You
agree.
think Arnold was your best look? Why is that?
I think we had the whole combination of dryness, fullness, conditioning, everything. I think for the Olympia was the second best, but I just think there we were a little flat.
Yeah, it was a long run to Olympia. It looked like you kind of ran out of gas a little bit, but the Arnold, you nailed it.
By the time the Olympia came, my body was starting to get the burned out feeling a little bit.
Yeah.
But overall, I would say the Arnold was definitely my best look out of the year.
Okay, Bob. Since I know you don't like controversy, only Shawn Ray's likes controversy.
Yeah, buddy.
If you had to pick a first call out of the Mr. Olympia as we speak, tell me the first call out of the Mr. Olympia right now.
I think there's going to be more people in the first call out this year with the additions that we've seen. I think you're absolutely going to see Ramy, obviously. You're going to see Bonac. You're going to see Brandon Curry. You're going to see Nick Walker. You're probably going to see Hunter. But again, now remember, Hunter had to come from the back of the pack last year. He was holding a lot of water, and he literally had to work his way up into the ranks, which he did, fair and square. But you're going to see that call out, I would think, first. And then Big Steve's going to start filtering guys in and out to prove themselves. And some guys are going to get better, and we've seen it all the time. Some guys are going to get worse. But I would like to point out, if you remember, and Shawn and Terrick, you're both historians of the sport. If you remember years ago, Gustavo started off in about 8th place and worked his way all the way up into 3rd place at the Olympia. So probably the biggest comeback on the stage I've ever seen.
Yeah, Hani Rambo, you just forgot to mention Hadi Chupin.
Oh, and Hani, yes.
Hani Rambo just had a heart attack in Texas right now.
Yeah, you can't forget Hadi either. He will absolutely be in the first call out, yes.
But Terrick, you keep talking about the first call out, and I don't know that the show's going to start with the first call out. So we got to be prepared for that. They could go backwards and then wind up with the final guy standing. I think you'll probably have 4 guys. I think 4. I don't think they're going to go with the top 6. I think they're going to call out 4 guys that are going to wind up battling it all the way down to the end. I just don't see 6 guys coming in and hitting their peak all on the same day. It's been a long time since we've seen that actually happen. I'd have to go back to the 90s for that, where the top 6 were all in great shape.
if I'm not mistaken here, Big Steve called 6 competitors initially. It was Big Ramy, Brandon Curry, Hadi Chupin, Hunter Labrada, Nick Walker, and William Bonek. And then there was a final call out on prejudging, which included 4 competitors: Big Ramy, Brandon Curry, Hunter Labrada, and Hadi Chupin.
I think that's what's going to happen again.
Yeah, after I just prove you wrong on the Frank Zane thing, I wouldn't disagree with me anymore, Shawn.
You're getting better, son.
Listen,
But yeah, that sounds about right.
listen. You do have to go back to the '90s. You also got to go back to the '90s for when your Las Vegas Raiders were in Oakland and they were relevant in any respect.
Oh, that's like the Cowboys, right?
Hey, I don't know. I switched my hats out. I got the Olympia hat. The Cowboys will be in it this year. Don't you worry.
Oh boy, Nick, what's your football team, Nick?
I'm Eagles, man. I'm the Eagles.
You're an
Yeah,
Eagles
Oh, yeah.
fan.
See, I feel
Because
your pain, bro.
Nick
Both
Walker is originally from New Jersey. And I want to go back, Nick. Let's go back to the topics that I sent you guys on the text message. We're going into some of the national shows, right? We have the Universe, we have the USAs. I think this weekend we have the Masters Nationals. I
Right.
remember when you placed 6th in the USAs. Look at this. In 2017 or
Six-
no, 2018,
No,
Nick
16.
Nick Walker placed 6th as a light heavy.
Yes.
On that same year, Derek Lunsford placed 2nd as a middleweight.
Yeah.
And it turns out that right now, both of them are at the top of the sport. Talk to me a little bit about your amateur career, Nick.
Well, what do you want to know?
I want to know your
It was
first
short.
show. Your first show. I want to know when you really believe, because you placed 6th as a light heavy and then you exploded into a super heavy. Elaborate a little bit on those years that you just exploded into this massive bodybuilding.
Well, I think 2016 was when I probably 100% believed I could make something out of this. Being 6th, and then the following year in 2017, I did do North Americans, and I got 6th there. And then I did nationals at the end of 2017, and I got 6th there. And then I took 2018 completely off. And then in 2019 was when I did USAs again as a super heavyweight and got 2nd there. And then 2020, I won North Americans.
Very cool. Do you remember,
That's how you
Bob?
do it.
Do you remember? I remember him clearly as a super heavy at the USAs. And I said to myself, this guy will eventually shock the world. Do you remember him?
Yeah.
Bob, can you hear us?
Yep, I got you. Listen, Nick, me and Shawn had more shows as teenagers than this guy's had in his whole career so far. So, you got to take your hat off, man. He walks the walk, talks the talk, and that's what it takes in this day and age. But, Nick is a throwback to the, we always talk about the good old days, but, back when Shawn was competing in Levroni and some of these Flex Wheeler, some of these superstars coming out, it only took a couple of trips and then boom, they were up there at the O. And we haven't seen that too much lately. So it was refreshing last year to see Nick get on there, again, talk the talk and walk the walk, and ended up in that top 5. And that's impressive, man. You got to respect that.
Absolutely. I want to talk to you guys, to all of you guys. We've had some major announcements recently about bodybuilders that were competing in different organizations, and they decided to come to the NPC Worldwide and the IFBB Pro League and the Mr. Olympia. And first I want to commend these guys. I actually had the chance of meeting Vitaly Gutavito in Brazil, and he's going to be doing the Olympia Amateur. And Michael Crizo is now joining the NPC and the IFBB Pro League. And I want to ask you guys about these guys. I'm going to start with you, Shawn Ray.
Yeah.
This competitor is from Russia. He's very popular. He has not started with us in the NPC. Take a look at his physique and let me know what kind of impact he can make.
Are we waiting for the video or?
No, it's always going to be pictures.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I've seen this guy before. Yeah, he's got He's got the same type of thickness on the muscle side that Nick displays. He's got a little bit longer of a torso. But again, when you're taking pictures by yourself in the gym, you're phenomenal, but you're only as good as the guy you're standing next to, because when you actually have to tie that into peaking on the stage, that's where the rubber hits the road. Potential will get you so far. He's got the potential, but can he rise to the level of the Mr. Olympia? We saw Matt Mendenhall couldn't rise above the Nationals. We saw Roy Littlemeyer couldn't get out of the Nationals to get their pro card. Two of the most genetically gifted athletes. But when it comes to the big dance, some people, Cedric, rest in peace, could not on the day of the Olympia hit the peak. However, he could win an Arnold Classic. He could win one of these shows over here in this country, in that country. But the Olympia, there's something different. You have to be mentally and physically ready to peak on that weekend. And a lot of guys with great potential, sometimes they just can't rise to the level of the show. We'll see if this guy can do it after he qualifies, because he's still got to qualify.
Yeah. I mean, Bob, taking consideration, this guy is going to do the Olympia Amateur, right, in Brazil right now in September.
Okay.
If you were to, for instance, compare him with Nick Walker, compare him with some of the guys that were turning pro, what do you think of this guy?
Well,
He's Vitaly Gutavito.
I'm with Shawn on this one. I mean, listen, everybody looks great in the gym and by themselves, and history has taught us that not a lot of these guys have come through. We've had other people from other federations that have come in with a lot of fanfare behind them, a lot of talk, and a lot of high hopes. But all of a sudden, they didn't shine as bright on an IFBB Pro League stage against the best in the world. So does he have the potential? Yeah, I mean, I do see where he can use a little improvement. He is a little long-waisted. You know, the lats are kind of high and that type of thing. You can see, like in that picture right there in the front double by, and especially the other picture that's going to come up that we just saw previously. Again, all the potential in the world, but you got to stack up. That's a great shot right there that was on the left side, illustrating right there how high his lats are. Very Victor from back in the day, Shawn.
Yeah, Victor Richards and Lee Priest, like long torso. But, I mean, again, these shows are one from the back. I'd love to see this guy from the back, too.
I'm going to try to get some pictures. I actually might have some pictures of him and Michael Krizo competing against each other from the back. Let me see if I can find it here. In the meantime, Nick, if you had to look at this guy, Vitaly Gutavito, he's a young guy. He's in he's 24 or 25, going for his pro card. He was considered to be one of the top prospects in other organizations. What do you think of this guy?
Oh, I think he's a freak. And I'm excited for him to be in the IFBB. I think, you know, if he keeps going the way he's going, he'll be a real threat down the road. I don't know about right now, but definitely down the road for sure.
Yeah. And then there was another guy, which it was just recent, right? And maybe I have more pictures of him. It's Michael Krizo, right? Michael Krizo, he is a competitor that competed in another federation. And now he's coming into the IFBB Pro League in the NPC. And again, guys, I commend these guys because they want to compete against the best, right?
Yeah.
They're courageous guys that said, you know what? I want to compete against the best. I might not win, but I'm going to go against the best. Let me see if I find more pictures of this guy here. I actually have a picture of him right here next to Nick Walker. There's all these montages on the internet. What about this guy, Shawn? What do you think of this guy? Can this guy be?
How tall is he?
I don't.
He's taller.
He looks like he's about 6 foot tall.
Yeah, he does. Which doesn't always bode in your favor, because the taller you are, the more mass, more size you got to carry. In that front lat spread, he looks great. That's a great shot. Little bit soft for the IFBB Olympia standards, but he's got some great lines on that front lat spread. He's hitting it the way it's supposed to be hit. But he's going to have to be a little bit better conditioned, because when he stands next to somebody like Nick, it's going to be a problem for him if he's not harder.
Yeah.
What do you think, Bob?
This guy's a beast. I mean, listen, I've seen lots of video of him. Recently, I was actually supposed to interview him for a Voice of Bodybuilding episode the other day. Him and his coach came in. He doesn't speak any English, unfortunately. He's working on it. His coach is a little bit better, but they're kind of making the rounds here in the States. So hopefully this week I'll have an interview with him where he can at least answer some questions and see where he's coming from. But He's huge. I mean, there was a picture. He was at Big Steve's gym, and standing next to Big Steve, he was only an inch or two shorter. And now Big Steve's about, I don't know, 6'2", 6'3". So that kind of gives you an indication of how big he is. But again, got to get to the pro league first, and I don't think he'll have any problem doing that. Then you gotta win something to qualify. Then you got to stand next to Nick and Hottie and Brandon and all these guys and prove yourself. Because again, sometimes the translation on stage doesn't compare as well as what we're expecting.
Yeah, I mean, remember when Cedric turned pro in 2009? I mean, he was a lock for the Mr. Olympia. But the best he ever did, I think, was what, 6th place in the Olympia.
Let me go back a little further, Shawn. We saw this years ago. We experienced this with Alex Fedorov.
Yeah, Alex Fedorov back in the 90s.
Absolutely. Listen, I go back to what Shawn Ray mentioned. In 2009, about 2 weeks before the Nationals, a picture of Cedric McMillan on his front porch came out on Muscular Development. And the entire bodybuilding world was shocked. And the comparisons were simply between Cedric McMillan being the next Lee Haney. He went to that overall against Jeff Long and Seth Feroce. Seth won the light heavy. Jeff Long won the heavyweights. And Cedric won the super heavy. And he was convincingly the best bodybuilder. And the talk of the bodybuilding world was that we were witnessing the next Lee Haney. And unfortunately, it didn't pan out like that. Cedric didn't win a Mr. Olympia. So, as a judge, I have to concur with you guys. I'm very conservative when I look at some of these guys. And once again, I commend these guys for coming to the IFBB Pro League. And I think they're courageous, they're great warriors, and their potential is very high. But the pictures are not enough for us to be convinced that they can have a tremendous impact. Once you hit a side pose, a side chest, next to Big Ramy, Nick Walker, Ian Valliere, I don't think there are human beings on earth that are going to outmuscle these guys. I just don't.
Well,
I don't think.
Let me say this, Terrick. I caught you guys right in the middle of at the end because I was having some microphone issues, but you were talking about the mass monsters. I wouldn't worry about the mass monsters. I would be worrying about conditioning. Conditioning is going to be the key to this Olympia because in history, a lot of the mass monsters never really. Marcus Rule was as big as mass monsters they get. I'm not so sure he ever sniffed the top 5 at the Olympia. Francisco Batista, this guy had more muscle than anybody on that stage. Again, didn't pan out on stage. So size is one thing, the big, huge mass monster type of thing, but traditionally and historically speaking, a lot of them have not fared as well on the big stage.
Well, it brings me back to Branch Warren. Branch Warren was second in the Olympia for one reason. He was rock hard and granite hard. Yeah, he had the muscle size, but he wasn't the biggest guy on the stage. He brought conditioning, and that elevated his game. I think that's what I think Nick should take a page out of that. He's got all the muscle in the world. He comes in hard, makes Ramy look soft. That's one less guy he has to deal with, one step closer to the Olympia title.
Mm-hmm.
That's a pretty good advice, Shawn Ray. That's a pretty good advice.
Always the right advices.
No, Shawn Ray has very good advices. Now let's talk about the Chicago Pro. We're going into the Chicago Pro. It's one of the major shows we have. Now, we had a chance to look at that list, and I believe Antoine Vaillant is a late addition to the event, and he's the only competitor there to win a pro show.
Smart move.
We do have Manuel Romero. Remember Manuel Romero? Yeah. He's coming back, tall, athletic physique, coming back. So it's nice to see his name on the list. And then we have the Italian Andrea Musi coming in. But Bob, it's not a deep list. You don't have a lot of guys. I wonder why Ian Valliere is not doing the show. He just won Vancouver,
That may be why he's not doing this show, because he just qualified and he can take off. But he's got the luxury now of wait until the O. But I did see the list. I got to be honest. I did not recognize a whole lot of names. So there's a lot of new guys in here. It's wide open. Antoine, smart play. Listen, he only lost by a point, I think. I didn't see the score sheets, but from what I heard, to Ian, that's pretty impressive. The kid's got a lot of muscle. He's a very good poser. He can display his physique properly. Tonio Burton's in there. I saw his name. Let me tell you something. Manuel has a better physique than all those guys, all of them, if he can
Agreed.
get conditioning.
That's always been
his Achilles heel in the past, is he can't nail down that condition. If he could, he'll wipe them all out.
Yeah, conditioning's always been his problem. He's got everything that it takes to be a champion. And this might be a very good lineup. But comebacks are hard. We've seen very few comebacks that are successful. So Manny's got his back up against the wall on this. A lot's going to be expected of him condition wise, and sometimes in the comeback, conditions like the last thing that comes in. I'm surprised that Ian didn't come to this competition after winning over in Vancouver. It would have served him better to have this victory under his belt because it's only a week apart. What are you going to do? Go home and eat cheeseburgers? This should have been another title that he should have tried to add to his collection. He won the Texas Pro last year, didn't he?
Yeah.
And then he won, and he rolled that right into Tampa, where I think he was second.
No, I think he won Tampa too.
No, he won Tampa.
So I'm just saying I don't know his schedule, but as a professional bodybuilder in these times, getting that other title this weekend would have been solidified a little bit more going into the Olympia. I think it was a mistake that he stayed home.
Nick, you qualified for the Mr. Olympia, being one of the top 5 at the event. You didn't have any interest in doing an event during the year. You're just waiting for the Mr. Olympia.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I haven't had an off season since I pretty much turned pro. So I did think it was in my best interest to let the body relax, take a break, and have a good off season before starting prep for the Olympia.
I think a lot of people were cheering for you to take the time off. You earned it, and we're glad that you took the time off.
I gotta tell you, he looks massive. I do these lives here, and I have never seen anybody covered from one side to another. He looks massive.
How much are you weighing today, Nick?
294.
Wow, you're only 5 pounds heavier than Bob.
So
Bob doesn't even train.
Hey, Nick, could you take off your shirt and hit a frontable biceps right now?
Wait, what is this? This is not an only me site. What's going on here, Terrick?
I'll show my bicep here.
Look at that.
Good Lord.
I got to be this guy's manager. You can't show that stuff for free, Nick.
Bob,
the steak dinner's going to go your way instead of his.
Bob, I'm going to tell you, this guy's looking scary.
Listen, it's his job to look scary. He's doing exactly, if I was in his camp, if I'm running Nick's career, I'm with Shawn on that. I would have told him exactly that. Listen, you earned it. Take the year off. Let yourself heal. Be mentally prepared, right? Listen, this guy was top 5 last year. If you're in the top 5, you can win. Okay, yeah. That's how close you are. Right? Anything can happen. Listen, Rami has been a lot of things, but consistent has not been his forte in his brief pro career. He can go down. Listen, and all these other guys have beaten each other up there. Yeah. Rami's been beaten by a lot of those other guys like Brandon Curry. So he stands a good chance. This is smart play right here. Good management. Get yourself ready. You're in the top 5. Try to make a 5 into a 3 or a 1. Obviously, you're going to go for the victory. But listen, every spot up at that point is $50,000 more.
Progress.
So.
Yeah, it's progress.
Well, when I was in Florida, I went with Olympia TV, and we shot with Derek Lunsford. I shot with Ian Valier, Laura Alicia Pados, Chris Bumstead. And in Florida, you have a lot of great bodybuilders. Florida is what California was in the 90s. So in Tampa, you have Nick Walker, you have Derek Lunsford. In Fort Lauderdale, Miami, you have Blessing, you have Chris Bumstead, Ian Valier. And there was a buzz among some of the top bodybuilders talking about Nick Walker. And I went desperate. I said, I want to see Nick Walker. I started calling Nick Walker. And Nick Walker's like, no, I'm traveling with J-Lo to Paris or something. This guy's like, he's like at a different level right now. Nobody can get him to film anything. I'm so happy we got him on this live. Nick, there's a buzz about you winning the Olympia. What's that all about?
People know. They know I'm coming to win. So.
And you know what? I mean, you're not hard to miss, man. I mean, the progress has been slow. and steady, and you haven't done anything radical. You haven't done anything crazy. And again, the break was the best thing because I know what a break will do. You just look at Kevin Levroni's career. I mean, after the Olympia, Kevin would take months on end off.
Yeah.
One of the few freaks, but the body thrives on rest and recovery. Whereas Dexter Jackson and Flex Wheeler, they can compete with a lot more frequency, along with Vince Taylor. But we're talking 3 of the most genetically gifted bodybuilders of all time.
Yeah.
Nick has got to work for everything that he's got, and you can clearly see that he's slowly and gradually put the right muscle in the right places, but he's bringing the condition with it. And so we're just waiting for you to just unveil and mature, because sometimes it's just about muscle maturity, and that only comes with age and time.
Well,
You're
Nick,
peaking at the right time.
The expectations are huge. I want to put Bob Chicherillo here on the spot. Bob, I know you've been losing a lot of friends on the internet lately. Let's add
Welcome to the club,
more. Between you and Shawn Ray and controversy. But again, it's a lot easier to be an expert, to get a phone and start a podcast, than actually have 50 years of history in bodybuilding. But anyways,
true. Yeah.
Bob, where does Nick Walker finish at the Mr. Olympia 2022?
Well, that's the big question, right? You hate to pawn it off.
The question is mine. You got to deal with the answer.
I'm trying to answer it.
Go ahead, politician.
Yeah. This is a tough one because, again, we're in a game of that anything can change. People don't always bring the same package. I will say this. If Nick Walker is better than he was at last year's Olympia, he will absolutely place higher. So that could be 1, 2, or 3, or 4. I don't think if he's better than he was, he'll be higher than 5th.
Okay, Shawn Ray, you have plenty of people unfollowing as we speak. Might as well just add about 100.
Yeah.
Where does Nick Walker finish at the 2022 Mr. Olympia?
Well, I heard someone quote me as I'm 99% of the time, if I'm wrong, I'm 1% right. That's all it takes is that 1%. Mind you, I make those calls at the most difficult times while Bob's doing the pause to make the announcement. I've already blurted out who the champion is. Based on the trajectory that Nick is going to be in the top 3 when it comes down to it. And then it's going to come down to the judges, and I'm not a judge, but I think Nick's going to be a top 3 finalist for sure.
Well, hey, Terrick, why don't we try this on for size as long as we're here in the studio? Nick, see how this wears on you. And new Olympia champion. Huh?
That's what you're saying this year.
I have a feeling based on the lineup, based on the lineup, the age of the lineup, because some guys are aging out. Keep in mind, you'll figure out who those people are because it happens in every sport. They start to kind of age out, which means they don't necessarily improve from one year to the next. I know.
Well, Shawn, those guys you're referring to are Big Ramy, right?
Well, they're veterans,
Hadi
correct.
Chupin and William Bonac. Those are the guys you're mentioning.
And Brandon Curry is in that group as well. So the closer you are to aging out, the more likely you're probably not going to be that what you once were, and that wow factor is not going to be there. This kid is aging up. He's aging into it. I think we're going to see more of a wow factor, and that wow factor might diminish what we've already seen from Big Ramy, what we've already witnessed in the 2019 Brandon Curry and the repetitive version of Hadi Chupin. I think Hadi Chupin the last 2 years was very similar to what he was. William Bonac's had some injury problems. Did he not go into surgery after he just won?
Yeah.
I think he went into some type of surgery. That's never good as a bodybuilder as you are trying to climb up the ladder, going into surgery and coming out. We know it didn't work very well for Phil Heath. So Nick is coming along at the right time. And I think that he's progressing going up that hill while he's going up against some veterans coming down the hill. And if everything aligns and he hits that peak, he's going to have more of a wow factor than what Big Ramy has. I think we've seen the best of Big Ramy. Now it's up to Nick to show us the best of him. And he's at the right age where we could actually see him at his best, which is a younger version of all of those guys he's got to go through. So I got him in the top 3 for sure.
Basically, what you're saying right here is that Nick Walker, Hunter Labrada are probably the guys who are going to lead the charge for the new generation, correct?
Yeah, and like Bob said about Hunter's just got a conditioning issue. He's got to nail his condition. He's got the genetic gifts over Nick. He's got a nice, prettier physique over Nick because it's just got the genetic gifts, but he doesn't have the chunky muscle that Nick has earned. And when you stand there and you look at the muscle thickness and the grittiness of it all, you put the two together, now you got that decision of apples and oranges. So,
Shawn brings up a good
LeBron's
point.
got to be hard.
Shawn brings up a great point for once, and that is that consistency is your best and your worst thing in bodybuilding, because you kind of get rewarded for it, but you can also get chastised for it. If you're consistent, but you never really make any improvements, it's looked upon as you're just the same, while a Nick or a Hunter come in and they're fresh. It's something new, that comes in. But on the other flip side, I mean, you want to be consistent, right? You want to come in, be in condition, right? Hey, man, the guy's always in shape. He's never off. But it's an interesting dichotomy when you think about the world of professional bodybuilding and how it works, so that can help you or hurt you.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you, the older you are, sometimes your limitation, hunger. It's like you're not even thinking about possibility of injury or the amount of reps or the amount of weight. You're just going balls to the walls and you just go as far as you can. When you get older and you're counting your money and you're paying attention to your other businesses and your children and recovering from injuries, there's so much more calculation going on getting ready for the biggest show that it can detract from the young, hungry lion coming up. When it's just, I want that title and I'm 25, 26, 27 years old, you train with a different amount of intensity because the world is your oyster at that stage. But when you're in your 30s, heading into your 40s, things are a little bit more calculated and you're a little bit more guarded. So it's hard to make those improvements.
Yeah, I think there's a generational gap in the current state of bodybuilding. I think you have these guys who are winning the shows, the Mr. Olympia, such as Big Ramy, who are contemplating retirement or already thinking about retirement. And then you have these guys who are so young, they're just starting their careers. I remember Hunter just turning pro at the Nationals. It felt like it was yesterday. And Nick just turning pro. We don't have anybody in their early 30s or mid 30s, right? I don't know how old Hadi is, but it seems like we have a generational gap. And what might happen, again, it's total speculation, is to have a very young, Derek Lunsford is also young. What might happen is a very young Mr. Olympia, right? One of these guys are going to have to be Mr. Olympia if the old generation is coming out, correct?
Well, the last time that happened, again, you're talking Lee Haney. You got to go way back. Lee Haney was 24 years young. And I think he was the last young Mr. Olympia. I mean, Dexter Jackson was in his 40s, I think, when he won the Mr. Olympia, and Ronnie Coleman as well. So, yeah, there's definitely a youth movement taking place here. And statistically speaking, you haven't had a lot of young guys make a big impression over I shouldn't say the recent years, but over the last 10 years, because you did have older bodybuilders winning all these shows. And now it looks like we have an influx of young blood. And again, when you hear Mr. Olympia's talking about retiring and you got a guy who took his first year break, Nick, how old are you?
I'll be 28 in 2 weeks.
A year off, if that, and he's 28 years old. I mean, there's a lot of gas in that tank, man. Coming up in the 90s, I hate to always bring it back to my era, but that's all I have to refer to. Everybody was good in their 20s. Flex, Chris, Kevin, everybody was in their 20s when they were doing the business of bodybuilding, and then they started getting older and older and older. And right now, Nick and Labrada and Derek, they're the young guys, and they're hitting their prime. Why I think the other guys are aging out, and it's going to be to their detriment.
Terrick, interesting is we're talking about this, and I'm thinking, old guard, versus new guard. We're on the heels of the Chicago Pro, traditionally a very big show. Tim Gardner putting that one on, usually has 200 and something pros. But I'm looking at that lineup that we were just talking about, and guess who's not there? Which I think is a bigger story than who is. No Kuklo.
Steve Kuklo,
no Ruli Winkler. No Akeem Williams. No, who else has to qualify still?
Sergio Oliva Jr.
No Sergio, thank you. I mean, where are these guys? I mean, we might see a change in the guard just in that they all can't qualify. There's only literally a few shows left.
Yeah.
Well,
qualify.
What's that?
What's the last show to qualify for the Olympia?
Oh, it might be. I could be wrong on this, so don't kill me out there.
In October, Reno.
It could be. I'm thinking maybe Chris Minnis' show.
Minnis. Yeah,
But
Shawn
here's
won
the
that
thing, though,
last
Nick,
year.
right? Listen, this was a golden opportunity for one of those guys I just mentioned to come in here as a favorite, right? Waltz in here, get your qualification, get the hell out of Dodge, get ready for the Olympia. Instead, there's going to be some new blood in there because we almost don't recognize one name in there. And then they all pile into either Tampa or, and one guy's going to go, right? I mean, so.
Well, Tamer had mentioned if I'm that one guy going over to do the Brazilian show to get my IFBB Pro card in September, I'd be headed over to October out in Reno to try to get Chris Menes's Olympia qualifier there.
Let me tell you that Michael Chris, you might see him go from zero to hero real quick. He might get his pro card, win a qualifier, and be on the Olympia stage all in the same year.
That could happen.
Well,
Absolutely.
there's another pro show in Brazil, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know the deadline fits, but this other Russian guy might turn pro at the Olympia Amateur and then compete and make it to the Olympia. All of a sudden, we have these two guys, new guys, making it to the Olympia. Now, I had a conversation with Chris Cormier on the phone, and he goes, Terrick, I just don't understand why some of these guys are not competing. In my time, I wanted to compete not only because of the money, but I just wanted to beat other guys. I wanted to go on stage and beat other guys. It made me feel good that I was going to all these shows and beating guys every week. Why isn't this happening right now? I mean, the Chicago Pro is there. It's an amazing show. Tim Gardner it's a show that everybody's going to be paying attention. I mean, look at the names we're missing. Akeem Williams, wasn't he on the first call out 2 years ago?
Yes, he was.
Yeah.
He was 6.
Yeah, I mean, the opportunity is there. I mean, listen, for me in my career, I just wanted to be Mr. Olympia. So I was never doing what Flex Wheeler and Vince Taylor and some of the guys were doing, and Chris Cormier. They loved competing. I looked at it as, the placing well in the Olympia gave me time to do other things that I can kind of take the nickels and dimes and turn them into dollars and cents and preserve my body. I wasn't trying to chase titles, and I didn't love dieting for competition. I loved the idea of becoming Mr. Olympia in the pursuit of that. So I only wanted to peak in one show a year. Now these guys have a lot of choices to maybe not compete. I mean, we saw Blessing won 2 shows, right? New York and Indy, but they were back-to-back. That's why I was surprised I didn't see Ian go for these 2 back-to-backs, because you're already in shape. So if they're back-to-back and you have to qualify, it seems like that would make sense. But there's so many choices, and there's so many guys kind of sitting out and trying to pick and choose who's doing what show, that it doesn't really seem like they're doing the business of bodybuilding. Maybe they have other options with their social media. Maybe they have other options with their sponsors where they don't have to compete.
Well, Shawn, to your point earlier that you were telling Nick, all those guys have one thing in common. None of them are in their 20s. Actually, most of them are in their late 30s and probably early 40s. So I think it goes in line with what you were saying earlier, which is, you know what? You don't have the distractions when you're in your 20s. Don't have a family. Don't have other considerations or kids or whatnot or businesses. So maybe it's just that it just kind of all came at the same time. But this one's busy with this. This one's gonna, they're gonna have a kid. This one's got, his businesses to run. The economy sucks right now. Everything's expensive. All that kind of stuff. So it could be, Shawn, that you kind of hit it earlier that maybe that's just the way it goes, and maybe next year is different. It just seems like an opportunity wasted to me for some of these guys who the clock is ticking.
I can tell you though, Terrick, if I'm the federation, I'm looking at this. I'd try to be eliminating some shows, make fewer shows, and I'm only giving the qualification to Mr. Olympia so that everybody's got to compete to qualify, and that way you win, you're in. Like me and Bob were talking about. You only allow Mr. Olympia to qualify for the next year. And look, if these bodybuilders aren't going to show up and do these shows, then maybe have fewer shows for qualifying. That way you have fuller lineups.
Agreed.
But look, we're going from this weekend in Chicago to next weekend in to 2 weeks into Tampa, and then we're going to go to the Texas Pro. Now, mind you, I'm only talking about men's open bodybuilding.
Yeah.
If these shows aren't what they're supposed to be, then I think the federation should take a look at these shows, because maybe we have too many.
Well, Shawn, but Blessing Awodibu, Nick Walker's best friend,
Awodibu.
He competed in Indy, and then he competed in New York.
Right.
And during those 2 weeks, you couldn't hear any other bodybuilder's name in the industry. He
Right.
was in the internet, he was all over. I didn't judge him on any of those shows. I started paying attention to him. I started looking at pictures.
Yeah.
Everybody was talking about him. Now, here comes Hassan Mustafa and wins 2 shows. All of a sudden, we're talking about his side poses that he could actually battle it out with some people that were on that first call out. I think some bodybuilders are maximizing. Bob, that side pose of Hassan Mustafa is massive.
Listen,
Is massive.
I love
Okay,
Hassan.
I'm gonna bring it up to you right now,
Okay,
and
go
I'll
ahead.
tell you, he might not have the ability to beat guys on other poses, but his side pose is impressive.
1 out of 8 ain't bad, buddy, and 2 out of 3 ain't bad, just like Meatloaf saying. But here's the bottom line. Listen, all due respect to Hassan, because, listen, this guy's competed a lot over the last 3-4 years trying to get himself in position. I got to give him credit because, listen, he got out there and he did the business of bodybuilding and he won fair and square. Now, hang on. Wait for it. It's all in who you're standing next to and who you actually beat.
100%.
So while I'm impressed with certain poses, he's weak in other shots that will prevent him from being in those first 2 call-outs or maybe even 3 at the Olympia. So I'm not that high on his I think that's a great one pose, Terrick, but as you know, as a head judge, it's all about the collective, man. You need 8.
It's also very strategic that he did those 2 shows.
Very smart.
He redeemed himself from the previous couple of contests that he was in, and he got a couple of victories, which is all any pro bodybuilder wants, is to be validated. And he's
let's give credit where it's due, Shawn. I mean, he was in 1,000 times better shape in these 2 shows than he has been in the past.
Yeah.
Well,
was that Toronto? Was that Toronto and Puerto Rico? He won.
No, Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico.
No, he won. He was at the Orlando.
Orlando, that's right. Orlando.
Yeah.
UBU. The UBU. What about your boy Terrick? Your boy that won over in Brazil.
So here's another good example. Rafael Brandão.
Yeah.
He won the show in Romania, right? And then he came to do the Arnold Classic in Brazil. He was not 100%. He was about 85%. His conditioning was not up to par, and he knew it. But he still won the show. And I had an opportunity to talk to him because he was heavily criticized by the Brazilian media as not being as good as he was in Romania. And what I said was, and this, Dexter Jackson was the expert on that, sometimes not being 100%, but still being able to beat other guys is a testament of how good you are, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
You're right.
So Ronnie Coleman did not have the greatest abs, and especially in 2001, it didn't look good. But the fact that he was still able to pull it out shows how good he is. Nobody can take it away from Big Ramy that he wasn't as good as the year before, but he still won. And what I'm saying is, a lot of bodybuilders, they're scared to go on stage because they go, well, I'm not going to look as good as I have in the past. But if you still win shows, that shows how good you are, even if you're not 100%. Dexter Jackson was the king of that. We all looked at Dexter Jackson and said, well, Dexter, we've seen him leaner, but he's still leaner than everybody. So take another win, right?
Right. You got like 28 of them or 29
Here's
of them.
the bottom line is this. You don't have to beat yourself. You got to beat whoever's standing next to you. So, listen, we saw Phil Heath win a couple of Olympias at 95%, right? Didn't have to be 100%. His 95% was better than, Kai Green's 85%, and that was a door that was wide open, but Kai couldn't step through it. Right. But not everybody's 100% is equal. This is a big fallacy in bodybuilding. Guy goes into a show, amateur or professional, right? And he thinks he hit it 100% and he loses and he gets pissed off. It's politics. Oh, this was bullshit. What are the judges looking at? Look at the other guy might have been 90%, but again, his 90% was better than your 100%. That's how it works sometimes.
Arnold Schwarzenegger circa 1980.
There you go.
And I mean, talking about momentum, Nick Walker winning the Arnold Classic brings a lot of momentum going into the Mr. Olympia. And the guy goes and gets a top 5. If Nick Walker doesn't win the Arnold Classic, I don't think he has any momentum. He's getting momentum winning these shows. It was Ronnie Coleman winning those shows. I think it was the Russian Grand Prix where Ronnie Coleman actually beat Kevin Levrone, right?
Yeah.
And then coming back to the conference, people said, well, Ronnie's coming pretty strong. There's a guy that everybody should pay attention. It was Ronnie Coleman. I think winning these shows brings attention to you and let everybody know how good you are. I think Blessing did a great job. I think Mustafa did a great job. I think Ian Valier did a great job, but he has an opportunity, and I think he's going to do Texas. You know what I mean?
I think the biggest difference here, and this is for Nick, is you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You don't have to even put any more pressure on yourself. I mean, very few people walk out and place the top 5 of the Olympia. Now you just got to naturally just go and just bodybuild. And if you can just go in there without thinking of pressure or feeling pressure to perform, everything else will fall in place. You don't really have the pressure because you have youth on your side.
Yeah.
Well, Nick, I'm going to finish this live letting you know that you are one of the best bodybuilders in the world. Shawn Ray is at a party. Let me put on mute. You are one of the best bodybuilders in the world. Not only that, you're extremely popular. The fans love you. I have a chance to travel all over the world. I judge shows in Asia. I'm going to Singapore. I judge shows in Brazil. And people talk about Nick Walker as the biggest attraction right now. So whatever you're doing on stage is phenomenal. Whatever you're doing off stage is phenomenal. Other bodybuilders want to have your size. The women go crazy for you. You're doing everything right. Shawn, myself, and Bob were very jealous of you.
All I know is the boogeyman's coming for you, Nick.
No.
That's what he said.
Hey, Bob, you always got to have your yin and your yang. My advice is, Nick, just keep doing what you're doing. Don't feel the pressure. Find your stride. Picture yourself as that thoroughbred on the Kentucky Derby going down the home stretch, baby. I'm rooting for you. And I love your family, too. It's great to see that family support. A lot of bodybuilders don't have that. So it's good to see that whole thing, because I know it takes a village. So we're looking for big things this year.
So we'll give you the final word, Nick. If you want to say anything to your fans or any expectations for the Mr. Olympia, we'll give you the final word.
No, just thank you guys for having me on. This is fun. I thoroughly enjoy doing stuff like this. And to everyone out there that supports me, is a huge fan. I truly appreciate it. That being said, 2022 is my year for the Olympia, so that's what we're going to do.
Thank you so much. Nick Walker, one of the most popular bodybuilders of our time. He won the Arnold Classic. He's top 5 at the Mr. Olympia. The expectations are high. This man is massive. Also with us, Shawn Ray, Ironman champion, Arnold Classic champion, 1994 runner-up, Hall of Famer. Also with us, the Mr. USA's 2000, the voice of bodybuilding, New York Pro runner-up, lost to Marcus Rule on that day, right, Bob?
I'm still pissed about that. All right.
And Terrick, the athlete's rep.
Now we're talking the biggest title of them all.
Bob, I'm telling you right now.
Did you know that Bob's the athlete's rep? Now.
He knows now.
I'm letting you know, Bob. I'm judging a show in Mexico this weekend. I will not be able to make it to Chicago. That's actually impossible unless Elon Musk has invented some levitation telepathic. I will not be able to be in both places.
Well, I mean, maybe we can get that Concorde jet we were talking about, so we can transport the lights and the black backdrops for all the shows on the same day. So, maybe we can use that to get you up there, Terrick. I'll put in a good word for you into the Pro League. Okay.
Sounds good. Guys, thank you so much. I'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.